So welcome back to YouTube. I am 6 weeks out. Well, when you see it, I'll be like 5 weeks out, but currently 6 weeks out. This week we have chosen to take, well, we haven't chosen to take, it was needed, a devolume week with a little bit of extra food, otherwise known as a little bit of a diet break. I am very lean at the moment. I think that I could possibly be ready for prior to the diet break, I could have been ready for a competition in around 2 weeks. So to kind of stop the rate of loss a little bit and to kind of get me back feeling a little bit fresh, because I was feeling quite run down and battered. It's not like me to turn around and say, Cuba, no, yeah, I need to take my devolume now. So it definitely was pretty bad. I thought that I was getting quite poorly. I was a little bit run down, but I definitely needed the rest, because after the 2 days of not actually training, I'm actually back to feeling much more myself. I still feel a little bit tired, but definitely much more myself. I was really struggling to sleep also, which is obviously another sign of quite high fatigue. I've taken out all of my kind of stims, having no caffeine apart from 1 coffee in the morning, and then I've actually found that my sleep's actually increased quite well too. Obviously still not having like a stim pre-workout before the gym, because my sessions this week have either been rest days or just doing the last working set. I'm only doing 3 of those sessions because I can't do any more of those sessions because they do my head in. But I absolutely hate them because I like to be able to give fire. So if I'm gonna kind of have a devolume and a little bit of a rest, I'd rather just take actual rest to make sure that I'm just completely kind of new and fresh, and that works well for me. When I got poorly in off season or when I needed times away, this time I actually took actual rest from the gym, and it made me feel so much better going into it, and I got a really nice kind of progression and bounce back from it. So I'm hoping that will be the same for this, because I'm feeling really kind of good today, and hopefully that continues to happen over the week where I just feel better and better, and then from Sunday I should be all ready to actually get back to it. But yeah, last working set today, training legs, gonna go through kind of my session and how it's slightly different, and maybe go through some pointers on some exercises just to fruit it up a little bit, because obviously it's not 100% pushing to failure, and that's just what we're doing today.
What is good, my people? Today's going to be a devolume session, and I'm pretty much here so she don't overdo it. I'm actually resting, as the way I kind of deload, and I'll do a separate video explaining that, is generally 3 days off followed by 3 devolume sessions. So Meg is actually going to do her second devolume session now, and the way we've kind of structured things will fall back in sync with training anyway. So intensity doesn't really come off. However, we're not going to take any 50 reps. It's going to be nice, clean failure without the emotion aspect that comes with hard training. I think many people that are watching this that know how to train will understand what I mean by that, because in order to truly take your set there, you have to emotionally be able to switch it on. And that in itself, neurologically, drives a lot of fatigue. The whole purpose of a deload is not to just physically resensitize yourself to training volume stimulus and all these other factors that contribute to hypertrophy. It is also to neurologically give you a break and mentally give you the rest that you need in order to be able to prepare yourself for the next training block or whatever you have planned in terms of preparation. So training volume today is quoted by 50%. Short session, relatively, but intensity will still be there, and I'll still take you through a lot of cues as to what we're doing and how. So stay tuned, we'll focus. A simple cue to really be able to get the most out of hamstring work here is no lower back extension. You see a lot of people make the biggest mistake when they get in the position is to start extending the lower back and they tilt the pelvis into posterior pelvic tilt. So basically, tilting your pelvis back and extending your lower back actually inhibits your hamstring doing the work. And all it's going to do is just put pressure on your lower back. That's the last thing you want to do in this movement. So what you'll see Meg here actively crunches over and actually sucks her stomach in, and then if anything, she makes sure that she straightens her lower back out and she's actually hunched over, using the main bracing point as her lats in this exercise. Another cue, you have to make sure that your knees are aligned in line with this little pivot point here. So basically when you get in position, as a rule of thumb, keep your back straight, use your lats as a bracing point, suck your stomach in and make sure that you're not extending your lower back. If anything, you're curling it under. Quads driven into the pad, lock in and go. Now you can kind of see in practice exactly what's going on. She's sucking in, lower back is not in extension, lower back is straight. If anything, she's pushing it out, driving her quads into the pad, knees that are aligned in line with the pivot point, pressure across here, then locked in using her lats, and again, the torso position should prop itself up slightly, so this is a perfect position to be in order for your hamstrings to be fully isolated. As you come down, super controlling the way back on the eccentric, make sure you make a chance of pausing the stretch, no momentum, nice little pause, drive up, pause again, and then come back down. If you can actually do this, you will definitely get this sort of hamstring development, which is actually really, really good. She's actually got really good hamstrings now. Now she's actually able to train them properly.
I didn't used to train them properly. I used to train my quads. I think that's a big mistake that many people make, is that they try to tense their quads. It's not really about tensing quads, it's about keeping solid connection into the pad, but not about tensing your quads. Otherwise you just start hurting your knee and using your quads and keeping your hips from.
Don't ever try and tense your quads on a lying leg curl. That's just
what I used to do.
Yeah.
I used to think that I needed to tense my quads to be able to make that contraction into there, but it's the complete opposite. They've got to have the tension into there from you pressing in, but not actually squeezing the quads. And I did that wrong for 7 years. Well, and now I have a hamstring. Fuck's sake.
So this is going to be her working set now, so you can actually see all the cues I've just given you put into practice throughout a working set. That's a controlled pause and then drive up. Beautiful. These are the reps. So on this particular piece, and most hamstring curls in fact do that, but this particular machine we can actually accommodate resistance profile where we want it. So resistance profile here is set onto mid to lengthen range, so mid to stretch where the most tension is. So here the most emphasis we actually put on the stretch and taking a pause in the actual stretch as well. Oh, one more. That's enough now, that's enough. So this, another rep would have been a super grinder. We're not actually doing that today, so that is the whole purpose of that. And as you can see, the hamstrings are blown up already. So just the one working set, and obviously you're going to get to see exactly how she performed that set. Now you can actually apply these cues for yourself. So next we're going to move on to the leg press. The reason why she's able to take a little bit less feeder sets and warm-up sets as well is the pre-camp mobility work that we always do now. It just allows us to prepare ourselves to get in these end ranges and prepare ourselves to do the actual work ahead. So spending 10-15 minutes just going through certain movements and allowing yourself to get in certain end ranges and sort of activation work, which is just basic movements, will allow you to actually cut down your kind of time that you need to prepare yourself for your working sets. Right, so during any leg press, you can adjust your stance to predominantly bias, which means try and target a specific muscle area. However, it's never going to totally isolate it. So as a reference point, feet higher and wider does not work your hamstring. You cannot work your hamstring in a leg press. Feet higher and wider is going to be adductor and quads. Feet more narrow with a slightly higher stance will be glutes. Feet more narrow and lower will definitely bias more towards your quads. So know your stance as to what you're trying to go. So as a reference point, high and wide, adductor and quad, narrow, again slightly higher, glutes, and then same width as your hips, slightly lower to a degree. That's going to be person dependent on how low you can go. It's going to be more quad dominant. Today, we're trying to go quad dominant. As a rule of thumb, guys, I wouldn't really try and stress yourself. We're trying to bias or target specific areas with leg press. I would literally find the position that allows you to get the most range of motion with the most load, keep full contact point of the foot on the platform, and then get after it and try and aim to lift as much load as you physically can and go as intensely as you can, be as safe as you possibly can be as well. It's quite important. So that is where kind of the stance will differ person to person depending on structure and mechanics.
Thank you.
So the principle actually applies on every single leg press that you do. You want to try and hold your hips in as tight as you can. The goal here is to get as much depth as you can without your lower back or hips bending. So your lower back cannot go into flexion. As you can see here, Meg can actually get really good depth on this particular pivot leg press. And as you can see here, her hips are actually locked in. Rib cage is tucked down in, stacked over the pelvis. And there is actually zero pelvis movement here at all. And she's actually able to get perfect depth and maximum knee flexion. So always aim to go as deep as you can, safely, without your lower back rounding or coming off or feeling any discomfort across your lower back region. Perfect reps, perfect reps. Good. There we go. Good. Control. Rinse them eccentrics, rinse them eccentrics. Better. Good. Good, come on. Good. Good. 1, 2, 3. 1. Good. 2. 1 more rep. Come on. And drive, that's it. Realistically, the next rep, I would have had to be spotting her. So I can see just through the way she's moving and how her tempo slows down on the concentric portion of the reps as to how close she is to failure. But to be able to see that, obviously, you know, I've been doing this for a very long time. I actually started PTing 11 years ago. So I can see these things pretty clear through just experience and, you know, spending time doing the do. Now we're going to move on, guys, to a single set of leg extensions. How to set up a leg extension. First and foremost, when you set yourself up, again, make sure your position is adjusted so your knee is aligned with the pivot point. Pivot point being here in line with the knee. You want the pad sitting as high up the leg as you can possibly get it within reason. You don't really want it too far down here, as again, that can actually create some unnecessary pressure on your actual knee joint. Once you actually get in position, guys, you have to make sure you get the alignment proper. So think about drawing a straight line from your hip down to your knee, down to your foot. Same principle applies on light leg curl. We want to work in straight lines so that the line of force goes directly through the joint and down into the machine. If the knees are outlined here on the leg extension or the light leg curl, think about the line of forces. The line of force will then pull the joint in. We don't want that. We want to work in straight lines. So once we get the setup right, then we go upstairs. So again, we want to make sure we pull ourselves down in hard this direction to create counter force against the resistance of the machine. So we'll pull ourselves down to create counter force. Once we do that, rib cage tucked down and in, again to create stability between your pelvis and diaphragm. If the rib cage is not tucked and we extend here, that will actually put us in a really poor position to actually engage the quads. Once you actually get in this position, quads will actually be on straight away before we even initiate the movement. To initiate the movement, think about driving forward and then up, not just up. As again, think about the motion of the machine. It moves in an arc. It doesn't just move straight up, it moves forward and then up. So I want to try and mimic that as well. So another little hack that we like to use is wrist straps. Again, the more stability you can create, the more force you can generate. So it only makes sense to strap in, get tight, and then get after it. Now she's going to get her working set done so you can actually see all the cues, put into practice, and see for yourself how to take things to failure safely. There we go. As you can see, guys, as well, super controlled the eccentrics, making sure that she's taking a pause across both contractile ranges as well. No momentum, no rushing the reps, nice squeeze across the board. And again, we should never really use squeeze, that term is pretty shit. The focus here is proper setup, proper execution with proper control and tempo. Control being the key here. The second we're able to gain control over all end ranges, we are really maximizing the stimulus all around.
Oh, bloody Nora. Oh.
In a normal session, we would actually do a split squat. We are going to show you and take you through it and show you the cues of the split squat, but we're not actually going to show you a working set because she's not going to do one. As a rule of thumb, guys, sometimes you will see me using one hand, so loading a contralateral loaded basis, which means loading in the opposite side of my hand to the leg that I'm working with. What that actually does is it challenges internal rotation, which in essence will challenge your glutes to stabilize your pelvis more. So if we are to bias the glutes, it's a much better option just to basically hold the load unilaterally, because that will actually force your glutes to do more work to stabilize your pelvis and actually have you be able to lock in position. The only direct glute work I have is obviously split squats. So I actually use contralateral loading, which is just one hand. Meg, on the other hand, that is a movement that she needs all around. So she will use loading across both hands, which still does challenge the glute a lot. However, from a stability standpoint, loading one hand does tend to be better for that purpose. However, both have the efficacy, and in order to be able to do that movement effectively, I would actually start with stationary split squat, get good at that first, and then start working back up to actually rear foot elevation, because rear foot elevation and split squat loaded with both dumbbells is quite hard. However, one dumbbell is actually extremely hard from a stability standpoint to actually be able to do that in one leg. So as a reference point, guys, know your place and know your programming. Don't try and run before you can walk. Learn to walk first and then run. You want the bench height at the back more in line or just below your knee, so that it's just a bit more comfortable to get full range, because the last thing you want to do is have that back foot so high that when you come down, it's forcing your hip up. You want to be able to cue your hip down and actually be able to cue your hip in. So all the pressure stays on this leg that's working through, and using that as a stability point. From here, again, rib cage down, sharp exhale, pelvis is tucked. Pelvis tucked back actually inhibits proper glute function. So your pelvis actually needs to be tucked under, if anything, almost into what I would call a scared dog position. Regardless of your loading, I would normally hold the dumbbell in opposite hand, contralateral loaded, hold my other hand out, again, cue internal rotation into here, and come down all the way in into hip depth, and then back up. Same again on the other side of the leg. And again, unless you are able to do this on one leg, and this on one leg with no issues, you have no business doing this movement. So you have to get good at standing on one leg. Right guys, so obviously Meg is wearing a little bit less clothes, so you can actually see things put in practice. So now Gaz's going to show you from the side her actual position, and here you can actually see now her pelvis is tucked. She can actually get a little bit more hip flexion. What that actually means is when pelvis is tucked under, she tilts forward, glute actually stretches far more. When your pelvis is tucked back, so like this posture most people have, including myself back in the day, it actually inhibits glute function. So a lot of people that walk around like this with bad posture, including me, have got really underdeveloped glutes. That is because it's a structural issue that is then carried over into the training. So the easiest way to fix that, and easiest way to actually fix poor glutes, is fixing your posture first. Adductors, this is another one that gets butchered quite a lot. Your adductor is actually connected to your oblique. So the position you take here is actually the opposite to what I've actually been cueing. You want to tuck your pelvis back here like a duck and bring your shoulders back and down. So when I actually get into this position in here, what I actually want to do is inhibit my adductors doing any work. So when I actually get in, the goal here is leg slightly externally rotated, shoulders pat back and down with my chest up, and then my pelvis is tucked back. Whilst I'm tucking my pelvis back, I'm actually inhaling in and sucking the air in, so that I'm also bracing, but with my air in, so that I'm not actually utilising my oblique to help my adductors do the work. So from here, boom, that's the posture you want, not this. This is a glorified ab machine. We don't want this, we want this. So now you're gonna get to see it in practice with my assistant, Smegalodon.
I miss you. I miss you. Lost my training partner. It's very sad, because I'm on a deload and she's not on a deload. We've separated, but soon to be returned. I have veins in my legs. You can't see them here, you can only see them in the light. So they're only partial veins.
See, this position that she's in right now is absolutely perfect. Her legs are slightly externally rotated, and here she's just using her adductors to do all the work, not her actual abdominals. And it actually shows, because her adductors are very well developed now in comparison to what it was.
What a bastard. Ugh.
Pump. Pump.
Really bad.
I'm actually going to do a separate video talking about deloads and what they do and how. Anyone who's deloading properly and doing a diet break, should you wish to do one, in prep, that's my preferred approach, which I'll break down. What you'll notice is when you go into the sessions, the pumps are just fucking crazy, and I envy Meg because I'm back in the gym after tomorrow. I will be having the same feeling, so I'm very much looking forward to it.
So moving on to glute kickback, which is my second to last exercise. I used to do this when I first did bikini, and I used to do it so wrong. Again, like Cuba said, with the posture when it comes to kind of glutes versus hamstrings is the polar opposite to what people think it is. With this one, what we want to do is you want to bring your chest all the way down to be parallel to the floor. That way, if you stood upright and you're starting to kick back, you actually get a lot of lower back, and then everybody gets a real lower back pump, regardless of whether you're fatting off season, thinning, prep, or whatever season you're in. You will get a lower back pump if you stand up, and it's not nice because then you don't really get to work your glute med or your glute as much as what you want to, because you've got that ridiculous pump in your lower back. So if you actually lean forward, you take away that, but allow for yourself to get full range of motion and full contractile range of the glute. So we want to lean forward, we want to keep their hips slightly internally rotated, so slightly under, crunching down really hard onto your core. So it almost feels as though you're hunched over, a little bit like the hammy curl. And then just before you start, allow for your hip to push back a little bit, and then you want to focus on not driving the foot directly back behind you, but on a tiny little diagonal out. If you directly go back behind you, again, it will be lower back rather than it being into your glute. I'm doing it as if my shoulder is my glute and my arm is my leg. Yeah, but yeah, you will get more kind of glute work if you are a little bit diagonal. Gaz will be able to show you when I'm doing it. And then you want to slightly turn your toe out. If you have it straight again and you kick it back, you don't really get the full work of your glute, so you want to turn it slightly out so that you can really bring it back. But I'm going to demonstrate it now. Really hurts my glutes. I've got pathetic glutes, or well, I had pathetic glutes. I mean, they're still not that good, but at least they're something. This, combined with obviously a little bit more volume through compounds that target the glute, such as kind of my heavy squat, obviously, yes, quad, adductor, but gets a lot of glute when you're in it, especially with the stance that I do because of my knee, a little bit more hip dominant, and then can't breathe. Also, I do a lot of hip thrust now. I didn't used to, alongside these, and I now have a nice glute from the side. So don't be stubborn and think that you're too good for a little movement like I used to, because they work, but not on their own, with something else. Don't just do a glute kickback and expect to have a massive bump, unless you've just genetically got a good bump. And the last exercise is calves. Calves is a body part that lots of people put off about bad genetics, say that they've not got great calves. I think that you could say that about any body part, really. I had very shit glutes genetically, and from the way in which I trained them, my glutes were terrible. My hamstrings were non-existent. Even last year when I competed, they were both non-existent. Whereas learning to train them properly with good intensity and with enough frequency and volume has obviously enabled them to grow. Same when it comes to calves. You actually find that the people, or I'm sorry if it's not true about you, but for the most part with people, they say that they've got bad calves, but then you see them do it, they do a half-assed set because it's a small muscle group, it's an easy muscle group, but it's also really niggly when it hurts. So people tend to train them not properly, effectively, or hard enough, so they don't grow, and they don't do them properly. So if you want to get a good calf, you need to make sure that your heel is coming all the way down as structurally possible for you and all the way up. and you need to make sure that you're doing that properly, will actually be something that you can do that can actually improve your ankle mobility also. So it is a movement that you probably want to get really good at, especially if something like squats or leg press or anything at all has a bit of a breakdown in it because of your ankle mobility. Start training calves properly and you'll not have a problem. So you want to make sure that you're coming all the way down, you want to make sure that you're coming all the way up, you want to make sure that you are having a pause at the top and the bottom unless specified otherwise with an extra pause. You don't want to be kind of rushing in and out, and you want to make sure that you do progress them in terms of getting heavier each time you do. Every time that you go, make sure that you're getting extra reps, training them with true intensity, and they will grow. I didn't have a calf after I broke my ankle, and I managed to get my calf to look decent again. I didn't have good calves. Unfortunately, the sport that I did prior to this was diving, where I was literally on my tippy toes all the time, having to do calf raises with people that were twice my weight on my shoulders doing calf raises, and that's how I got good calves. So I don't think it's a case of not having good genetics with them, it's the fact that you don't train them properly. So train them properly and you'll get some good calves. Like a bitch, it's horrible. So obviously here I'm opting to do the standing calf raise, which can feel a little bit unstable, and I definitely used to feel very unstable with it, especially when I was rehabbing back into full health with my foot. So I actually got really good and really strong on seated, or kind of a seated leg press before progressing on to doing something like standing, but my seated one's broken at the moment, so having to do the standing.
Phoebes is actually 3 weeks out this weekend. The plan is basically to have her ready over the next 12 days. She's been checking in daily now for fuck knows how long, but she's been checking in daily for a while now because the changes we're seeing are quite, apparent, and they're quite fast now. So we're definitely seeing the right movement. She looks like a true bikini athlete this year because the problem with Phoebe is the perception of her musculature is skewed with where she holds her body fat in off season. And we saw that a lot more last year, and this year I really stayed a little bit more harshly on top of her with her off season. But again, she can do better, I'll admit that, and she can admit that. But she will do better, and she will be better, but she's already done a great job. And I think 3 weeks out this weekend now, she's definitely going to be in a great position to do the business. We know what shape we need to bring, we know what condition we need to bring. Like, the condition she's in now, she's thereabouts ready, but that would not bring the look that we need, because the look that we need is going to require a lot more fullness, and there's a lot of things I'm going to implement to do that. But I'm not going to give away the secrets because that's why people hire me to kind of do that. So I'm not going to spill the beans for free. You can hire me if you want the secrets. So I'm definitely looking forward to her stepping on stage. Stage presence, obviously she is a posing coach. If you're looking for posing, get in touch with her. Her stage presence will be amazing this year, and it's definitely a good place to be for her right now. So like I said, if you want posing coaching, male, females, whoever it is, hit her up. And now Meg is going to do some posing as well. Right guys, that will be all. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this sort of content. I don't do it quite often, but every now and again I will do in-depth explanations of the sessions. So the next one, I may actually do an in-depth pull workout, in-depth push session, and in-depth hamstring session. We'll see. But I will try and cover all body parts for you so you kind of get the idea. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, or follow my blog on trainbyjp.com. Comment, all the help is there. Should you wish, should you need it, sign up today. Free trial, 7 days as well, as always. Thank you guys, take care for now. I'll watch Meg pose and then it's food time as I am Hank Marvin. Thanks guys.